Now I chose the Innovv K1 for two main reasons. I wanted a system that I could hardwire directly to the bike and not have to worry about charging any batteries or replacing batteries on helmet mounted or even some directly mounted to the bike. I also like that it has two cameras, one that faces front and one that faces rear. That gives you a lot more camera coverage in the event that there's an accident or you want to capture anything that's happening behind you. A lot of times in an accident, you might be getting hit from the side or from the rear and not have any clue on who it was that actually did that. So this gives you a little bit better coverage and it'll be a lot better evidence in the event you have to talk to insurance or the police and you don't have any other witnesses available. Now I'm going to be installing it on a BMW F800ST. The BMWs, and most recent BMWs, have a CANbus system that you can hardwire. It's supposed to be meant for the BMW's own GPS systems that you can buy from the dealer, but you can retrofit it for basically anything. You can charge your phone, you can charge camera systems like this, you can even get other GPSs. Now the only thing is I have to solder a BMW replacement cable, something that looks like this, to the power supply for the camera system. Now I'm going to do that in just a little bit, but first I wanted to show you what comes in the box. So I open the box and you see the LCD display, you see your two cameras. Underneath that, you got the display holder that protects it from the elements. You got your speaker and GPS module. You got your button control that controls recording and playback, and you can lock videos using this button. Various mounting hardware and charging cables, as well as your typical RCA cables for when you want to attach it to a TV. Got various pieces of mounting foam. A USB keychain card reader. And your instruction set. One other thing that came in the LCD holder was the DC-DC converter. So it basically goes from 12 volts in to 5 volts out, so that it can be used by the camera system. Now this is the part that I'm going to solder the BMW cable so that I can attach it to the bike. Okay, as you can see, I've successfully soldered the Innovv power converter to the BMW repair cable. It's important to note on the BMW repair cable that there are 3 wires. There's only 2 here. I cut the second one. That second one is for GPS speed pulse for the BMW GPS, which we don't need. The number 1 cable goes to your ground, and the number 3 cable goes to your positive power input. So this is my F800ST. I'm also going to be installing a new battery while I'm installing the CANbus connector for the camera system. So in order to do that on this particular bike, since the gas tank is actually in the rear, we have to take apart the pseudo gas tank fairing pieces over here. Requires a Torx 25, Torx 30, and a 10mm socket to get into the battery. So you got to take off the seat and take off these pieces here. So I'm going to do that right now, and I'll be right back. So before I start hooking anything up, I just wanted to show you guys what it looks like with the fairing off. So as you can see, battery is right over here. Got your positive, your negative. Now, the connector that we're going to be plugging into is actually attached to the positive wire right here. So you see on this bike it's actually taped to it. You need to remove the tape so that you can take the cover off the connector. Hopefully you can see that a little. And that's where the CANbus connector is going to go to power the cameras. So I'm going to, before I remove the battery and replace it with a new one, I'm going to just untap the connector over here, make sure that the system's working on power, and then I can proceed to replace the battery. Alright, so here you can see the connector. I've already taken the cover off the connector to the bike. So I'm going to just attach the two together, plug in the camera, and I'm hoping it should work. Alright, so it's probably kind of hard to see in the daylight, but you will see that the LED, the power LED on the control module, and you'll see that it's plugged in on the screen. Alright, so while I'm waiting for the electrolyte to fill into the batteries, or the battery, talk a little bit about where I'm thinking about placing the camera control pod and the cameras themselves. So as you can see, there's probably not a ton of space underneath the seat to put this without rubbing up against some other things. There's a few areas, like in here, maybe back here, or maybe somewhere along the inside where you can mount that control pod. Now, they tell you to try and put it in someplace where it's kind of protected from the elements. I will put it in the included cover, but I'm going to try and see a couple different areas where I might be able to put that in and fit it nice and neatly. And then as far as the cameras, I'm going to try and maybe put it right over here with some of that double-sided tape that they have on there. And then in the rear, probably end up being either below the brake light or possibly even attached to the license plate holder somehow. I'm gonna try a couple different things before really decide on final placement, but yeah, so I'm gonna install that battery now, and we'll go from there. Okay, I just installed a new battery. One thing I forgot to mention before, that when you're taking off the battery, you want to take off the negative first and then the positive, whereas when you're putting the battery back on, you put the positive on first before the negative. That's obvious to most people, but I just wanted to make sure before anyone does anything stupid. Alright, be right back. So I connected the cameras, connected the pod, routed the wire up over here, and then you see the power wires are also up over here, around down there, through over here for the front. Rear camera just goes back like that, and it's a pretty clean install as far as the wires are concerned. Yeah, so far so good. I'm gonna put back the fairing, make sure that all goes on, and that should be about it. Alright guys, just want to show the final product here. So you see I put the fairing back on. Got your 12-volt converter on the side over here, and also the front camera cable. Got it running along some of the bike's OEM cables. See the power cable going up through here, and got this nice little crevice here that fits the pouch and the control unit. So one thing I didn't like so much about the pouch was there's really no hole to put the wires through. There's this one on the bottom over here, which I guess you could do, but doesn't really give you easy access. So if you needed to disconnect the unit in a hurry, it's not really an option. So I ended up just using a knife to cut this hole in here. It's not the greatest solution, but it works for now. I'll probably think about ways to make this a little more secure and maybe a little more protected, but for now it should be okay. So just stuff that in there with the rest of the wires. You'll see this is the rear camera cable. As for mounting, mounted the rear camera basically right on the license plate holder over here using the included screw. So a couple things to note here. So there's 3 mounting points on the camera, 2 on the sides and 1 underneath. The one underneath is probably going to be your primary one, because if you try and mount it on the side, your video is actually going to be skewed when you record it to the side, so it's not really that helpful. The control pod allows you to switch the angles if it's on the vertical axes, but not if it's on the horizontal axes. So just put it in there, but note that the wire is coming out from the same side that the mounting point is. So you might run into a little trouble if you're using this mounting point, and hopefully you can kind of see it. I had to kind of bend the wire a little bit more than I would have liked in order to get that mounting bracket on. It would have been preferable to have either the mounting point or the wire on the opposite side, so that you're not running into that issue. But not too bad from a mounting perspective on the rear. On the front it was a little harder, because I didn't really have a good mounting point that was on the bike itself, so I had to use one of the pieces of double-sided tape that came with the camera kit. It's pretty secure. I don't think it'll move anywhere, but it's one thing to keep in mind trying to find mounting points for this. As you can see, there's not really any screws under there that I could do it. The only option I really had was to try and put it up here, but then it's kind of at an angle. But yeah, when you put in the key, turn it on, you should hear that the control unit starts recording.
Recording started.
And you're good to go. So this one I have on a switched circuit, so when you turn it off, it'll run for approximately 30 seconds to a minute, and then will automatically shut off. So overall, I'd say it's a decent installation. Took a little longer than I thought it would, but as far as I can see, not a whole lot of major problems other than, like I said, the case and the mounting points on the cameras themselves being the 2 major issues. But hopefully this video will help anyone trying to do a similar install, give you kind of ideas on placement of the control unit, or routing the wiring through the internals to get it where you want it. All right, thanks everybody.